Welcome, all you Sheehanites, to another special episode of Sheehan is Dead Comics. We are going to have Chris Balga from the Geek Ultimate Alliance. You can check that out on any podcatcher, Apple, Spotify, etc., etc. That's Geek Ultimate Alliance, Chris Balga. You can check him out on Twitter. He'll hit you with his information at the end of the interview. But let's get started. So how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you
I'm
for inviting me
honored.
on.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for coming on. I had seen you on OmniDog show not too long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've had OmniDog on a couple of times. We've had Omar on a couple of times. A couple of times we had them on together, and that was a lot of fun. Like Jess.
Oh, wow.
Jess appeared out of nowhere. Omar didn't know he was going to be on. And so it was like it threw him.
And they got into a fight, right?
Yeah. And it was very funny. It was a good time. So they were good sports.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed your Judd interview. That was a lot of great stuff.
Good, man. Thank you. Yeah. He was a pleasure to have him on. It took me over a year to pin him down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I had tried, I'd hit him up on Twitter and he's like, I'm busy. Try me back in February of this year. Tried him back, still busy. And then just one day he's like, hey, I'll be free on September 5th if you want to talk. And I was like, oh boy, do I ever. So,
yeah. We one of our more complicated ones, we had done we'd done it once before, but it got really complicated when we had the Massiverse guys. And so we did that with just Ryan, Michael Basittle, Matt Groom, Kyle Higgins, everyone like there. We did that 2 years ago for the first Supermassive to promote it at that point. And then they were doing another one. So I reached out to Matt and said, hey, I know it was really complicated before, but, with time zones and everything, do you think we can do it again and get Melissa on, Melissa Flores? And she's like, yeah. So like we've got all the creators there in the spring. It is just like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
So I can understand how complicated long-term planning is. So,
well, that is amazing. So you had everybody on screen at one time?
Yeah, for promoting the Supermassive. So it was a lot.
How was that? Because I've thought of doing that, like having a few people on. Like maybe I was thinking, even I was mentioning to my co-pilot Scott, I was like, "It'd be cool if we had a 1 year anniversary of everybody we had on and had like Hollywood Squares or something." But I was like, how would I handle that?
It wasn't bad because when I structured the questions, I made sure there were some questions for the group, and then I made sure every person had 2 or 3 questions we were asking them, because they each have their own characters they're kind of in charge of. So I wanted to make sure everyone got their own little bit of time. Very good. There was this great moment where we kept on hearing this thing in the background, and I was hearing it, and I thought it was one of our guys on our network, Clay's. I thought it was his kid crying in the background, because I messaged him and said, do you hear that? He says, yeah. I says, is that your kid? And he's like, no, but I hear it. And then all of a sudden Ryan Parrott starts hearing it, and then Kyle Higgins starts hearing it, and then Matt Groom's answering a question, and he sees Ryan cutting up, and he's like, what's going on? He's like, is someone dying? and Kyle just loses it, and it's Michael Basuttle, and he goes, why is it do you Americans not have birds? It's his parrot. It's cawing in the background, and it sounds like a dying animal. And so the whole it was like one of the best moments of the whole thing, just because everyone just cut up at that point.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
So yeah, that's how we did it at that point. Just pinging back and forth creators. But I've done different streams where it's just free form, we just ask and people talk, people don't talk. So
okay, it's always kind of odd when the guest you have on kind of goes quiet and you're not anticipating it, and you're like, oh, okay, time to lead up with another question. Let me
And
Like,
Kyle's interesting because the first time we had done it the year before, like I couldn't tell. It's almost like he needed to warm up to everyone.
right.
Like he seemed very like by the book, and then all of a sudden, like he snapped out and just started becoming like really open and really fun about it. Because I was like, oh my gosh, are we asking dumb questions or is he just like in a bad mood?
Yeah.
Because we were the last interview of an all day interview thing for
Oh,
Supermassive One. So
okay. Yeah, that's tough to be the last one. Yeah, I can imagine
yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and we were only supposed to have a half an hour. They gave us almost an hour and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. I've been able to I don't know if you saw we interviewed Dan DiDio. Did you see that one? Did you check?
That's on my queue to watch.
That was a lot of fun with Dan. And like we've had a couple of guests like Philip Kennedy Johnson
Mm-hmm.
say like I can do a half hour and then he stayed on for like 45 minutes. And
Yeah.
then um Sean O'Connell was another one. He's like, I got 30 minutes. He stayed
Oh
on
yeah.
40. But then Dan DiDio came on and there was no cap. Like he didn't say, oh, I can only be on for 30 minutes or,
Mm-hmm.
45. He was on for an hour and a half. And he's like, hey, I got to go at 8:30. And I'm like, no, that's fine. I got one more question. So yeah. Yeah, he was on from 7 to 8:30 with us. So that was a really good time.
Yeah, yeah. I got to meet Dan years ago at Heroes Con. That was the only time I ever met him. But Sean's a good guy. Sean's local in Charlotte, so we've become good friends. So
So the story we're going to talk about tonight,
yes.
um,
Yep.
Under the Red. Oh, you have it too. Okay,
Yep,
awesome.
I do. Yep.
Yeah, let me get my slip cover off.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there we go.
There we go, my man, my man. Awesome, awesome. So when did you get yours? Did you get yours on day of or?
I mean, I had it pre-order through OPB, so it's whenever it got to me. So yeah, probably
So
that
did
week
I.
of release. So
Yeah, dude. OPB is my jam. Like I swear, I will humble brag and say I must be like in their top 5 of book orders. Like
I was JP always jokes around. I was his number one customer, and in the sense of like being his number one. And like I remember, I think my second order from him was like a bunch of pre-orders. He said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you ordered that much at once." And I was like, "Dude, you're at the time he was like the only one taking pre-orders," and it was like it was around the time of Uncanny X-Men 4, that
mhm.
omnibus, and so that's where he got in, and so we've become very close friends. Actually, when you're doing the Twitter, respond to Twitter, you're talking to me. I run the Twitter for OPB.
Oh, okay. You do. Okay,
I run
dude.
tweet.
I
Yeah.
I saw thank you for sharing that. I
Yeah.
saw Jess had them on, David and
Yep.
JP.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to finish watching that. But they've always been helpful. Like David will email me
Yep.
like if I ask a question. And his thing is like with all the love that Batman has for his Robins or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I got such a big kick out of that. I love it.
Yeah, JP and David are good people. Yeah, they're very good friends, and I'm always about like, yeah, we'll push the OPB crew going. So
That's awesome. Good for you, man.
yeah.
Yeah, they are. They're nice guys. And every time like Scott and I talk about it on here, it's like
Mm-hmm.
you could take a box of theirs, it's packed, and throw it down the elevator shaft and it'll be fine because they pack it so well.
Oh yeah, yeah, and another reason like I had asked JP a while ago because he's good on the Instagram. And I said, Twitter I know is a cesspool, but it's one more thing that you don't have. He says, you're willing to run it, I'll set it up. But I said, yeah, it's easy. All I'll do is retweet the put out the videos they do and link it out. So I mean, more eyes on the business. So
Yeah, certainly, certainly. Well, that's
yeah,
awesome, man. Thank you for
yeah,
sharing it. I
yeah,
appreciate
no
it.
problem.
So this book, when did you originally read the story? Like the did you read the trades? Did you read the singles?
Oh, I was that's back in the days when I was still collecting singles. So I read this first run, and I think the most frustrating part about it is when it had its break to get before it continued the story on, because it was like the ending of that first part of the arc was just like, oh, come on, I want more of this.
Mhm.
And what it was always apprehensive about, because and Judd Winnick brought it up in your interview, is like the three things you never bring back from the dead. Uncle Ben, Bucky, and then Jason Todd.
Yes.
And so I think being apprehensive about, I think we all knew going into this it was going to be Jason, not just from what was thought to be revealed in Hush, but like it was one of those, well, of course it's going to be Jason. Like but that was the reveal, because I'm a big person of the journey is what's interesting. So I think some of us were bad taste in our mouth when it's kind of related to Superboy Prime hitting
Oh yeah,
the
reality.
wall. And so we're just like, really? That's it? That seems like a cheap way. But he brought, like, seeing how when it took that and said, I'm going to take that and we're going to acknowledge it, but we're going to give substance to what really happened. And I think that I love how they even put in the understanding of like his role in Hush at that point, because a lot of us were like, it wasn't really him this entire time, it was a fake out. But when it came to be, I Jason's such a very interesting character, and that's why I'm one of the big people who really promotes Batman and Robin Eternal, because that storyline really shows that each one of the Robins, the main Robins, is a part of Bruce's character.
Mm-hmm.
Like each one of the Robins, from Dick, Jason, Tim, and Damian, they're all made up of, like, Bruce. You can see a part of Bruce in every one of them at that point. They represent a part of it. So seeing Jason being I have no morals, I'm going out there to take him down, and because Batman doesn't get it. We take these people down. And so seeing it's almost like what's going on currently with the gang war with Catwoman and Batman currently. It's like, your way isn't working. Your way is the wrong way. And Jason's like, if I take them out, they're done. We don't have a problem anymore. So, and I find that interesting. They're kind of revisiting it now between Catwoman and Batman, but I really enjoy this. It is a father-son story, but it's a father-son story with so many layers on it. It's not just Jason coming back. It's about Bruce trying to first wrestle with, like, how is this happening, but also realizing, did I fail my son?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Well, that's beautifully said. Did I fail my son? My partner, my soldier, my
Mm-hmm.
fault. Love that,
Yeah.
man. I'm getting goosebumps right now just saying it.
Yeah.
I just love that part of the movie. It's so
Mm-hmm.
great. Now, I remember when this was coming out, and then I had, I don't know why I didn't pick up the singles. Maybe there wasn't a comic store near me at that particular
Yeah.
time.
Fair.
And at that time, like, Amazon was just starting as a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then a little shortly, not too far after, I had actually read the trade paperbacks, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like enthralled by it. And I always remember that cover of Batman taking the helmet off by Wagner.
Yes.
He's like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember that being like a huge thing on the internet at that particular time. You know.
It's very much, I mean, they did a really good job with the covers and how they were trying to promote it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, I had the trade for the big thick trade of everything together forever, and then they finally gave this the deluxe treatment at that point, and adding in the Lost Years on top
Yes.
of it, because I was wondering, see, it's great with it in it, and Lost Years just is that added up. But I love the cover that Jacques does to homaging Aparo, because that was such a cool thing for Batman Annual number 25. I
Mm-hmm.
still have that single issue. I sold all my singles to our mutual JP at OPB, and I just kept like two very small short boxes of things that matter to me, and that's one of the ones I kept,
Oh, that's
just
awesome.
because it's a nice epilogue to a death in the family.
Yes, it certainly is. Now, do you want to start at the back with Lost Days, or do you just want to consider this like from front cover to?
I'll just consider. I did not. I just read just Under the Red Hood. Just reread Under the Red Hood.
Okay.
So,
The Lost Days, having read it when this came out,
mhm.
like I told Judd, I was like, wow, this is like Jason Bourne,
Yes.
Jason
Hmm.
Bourne-ish. Because like he was like really specific about even the explosives he was using and like the whole setup of like the terrorists and all this. So, but I love first of all, I absolutely adored and loved the introduction by Judd.
Hmm. Yes.
Really loved that. And then especially, how he the first part is Danny O'Neill right there. It would be
Hmm.
a really sleazy stunt to bring him back, right? And
And
then
I liked
Judd
how he
addresses
and I liked how he clarified it, like what he really meant, and that's saying like details matter, so does context.
yes, very much so, very much so. And now to open this story, the very first page, this is really interesting because you just see this strung out guy under the light, and then all of a sudden there's blood on his head, and then another drop, and then he looks down. He's like, "What's going on?" And he looks up, and then he sees, what is well, this is what's causing it as they go over the edge.
Yep.
Batman is.
Yep.
And I love stories and especially movies that start out like this, where it starts out near the end and then picks up and brings you
Hmm.
back, and then you leave off from there.
And it's good. And I want what I want to say too is Doug Mankey and Alex Sinclair, this that combo of pencil and artist, like they are some of my favorite Dark Horse like kind of animators. The ones that Doug Mankey, but it's not like the first, on your top fives that when people
Right.
say, oh, the best artist out there. I will put him easily in the top 10 with Alex Sinclair just because that combo of their pencils and colors together, they just really bring out something special. And it just says, yes, this fits in a Batman comic.
Yes, very much so. I absolutely agree. And I remember Monkey. I really understood who he was when I read Blackest Night, and he did,
Yes.
the main story there. That was good.
Hmm.
Now I like this. The boots. This is awesome. Where you see the
The
boot.
bat symbol on the boots. Yeah, we got to
Yeah, yeah,
brand it.
yeah. And it's like he's coming right down at you. And I think up until that time, I never really paid attention that Batman had like ninja combat boots, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, he's got to do some stomping.
Yeah, yeah. He's got to do some literal stomping, some curb stomping. And I mean, they're just going at it hot and heavy. And then Bruce's mask comes off
Hmm.
and he's right there in the rain. This makes me think of the end of the animated movie, right?
Yeah, and especially how I was able to take off of Bruce's mask. Like that's the first. That's like one of the biggest dead giveaways. Like this is someone who knows you. This is someone that even at the time, like it just shows that okay, he was a kid. He obviously didn't have this type of mask, but he's obviously studied him enough that he knows how to take down, take off demask Batman.
Yes. Right. And how many
Mhm.
people know how to do that?
Yeah,
Just like in,
without getting tasered.
yeah. Or like in it's in here, but the way it played out in the movie where the line goes taut and he cuts it,
Yeah. Mhm.
and
Oh yeah. Yep.
he's like, wow, that would have to be learned. He's like, yeah, I'm aware of that. And then
I do like throughout the book that
mhm,
it's the war between Black Mask and uh, I do like that he chose Black Mask as the main villain for this one to go with Red Hood. That was a very appropriate choice.
in retrospect, it certainly was. It would have been so easy to just go like Joker the whole time and
Mhm.
and play that out. But to have the Joker as kind of a subcontext till the very end was excellent. And the way he played Black, he had Black Mask played it in the movie was awesome, like with a
Yes.
thick comedic twist. Very cool.
Hmm.
Very cool. So we see Bruce on that page. He says, "Oh God," and then now we're 5 weeks earlier. And I love Alfred's inner monologue where he talks about all that Bruce has been through, the loss of his son. Then we see them in the Batcave, and then we're going on, and then Batman is just really, he's prepared just to go out for a night on the town. And then the next page is what played out again so well in the animated movie is Jason standing on the in that warehouse with all the
Hmm.
drug lords, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah. I love how, like you said, I think Judd being involved in the animated movie is you don't get that too often.
No, not at
You
all.
know.
And to especially be the guy who like wrote the movie as
Hmm.
opposed to just being consulted. Yeah, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, seeing this part with the Red Hood, it's like, yeah, I can hear Jensen Ackles' voice in my head, right?
Yep.
I'm offering you drug peddling, a chance or an opportunity. and then he throws the bag down and he
Mm-hmm.
sees all their heads. Like obviously this is more graphic than the cartoon was, but it's like it really gets the point across.
It's just like we're dealing with a sociopath.
Yes, hardcore, hardcore. And then on page 31, boom. That's well, page 30, that's when we see Black Mask. And you
Mm-hmm.
know what? The fact that his face is an actual skull, it's it's kind of you could think like, how does he talk out of that thing? But it's like Doug Mahnke drew it very well.
Yes, and I do like, you see the beady eyes at that point. So
Yes, yes. And then Mr. Freeze on page 32 there.
yep, definitely kind of a random inclusion. It was kind of one of those. I think if I had like one small like kind of ding against it, I was like, okay, we needed someone else. Take him or leave him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then that awesome cover by another Wagner cover with Black Mask and
Mm-hmm.
the knife and Batman's cowl.
Another amazing, definitely one of my favorite artists of all time, Matt
Yes.
Wagner.
Mhm. And then on the next one, it's Under the Red Hood, First Strike. And then I love things like this where Batman holds people upside down on a
Yeah,
building. Like, have you read Rom V's Detective?
I have. I am gonna have to wait till he's finally done with the run because I have not jived with it. I like Rom V. I love him in like his stuff with Swamp Thing was outstanding. I've enjoyed it, but some reason like I'm good with long games at that point, but I kind of just fell off of it, and I'll pick it up once it's all collected and give it another shot because
Okay, because
I'm all about that kind of stuff. But it seems like he's playing a game that he's thinking he's kind of like a Morrison at that point. It's like you're thinking on a very high level, and I'm not there yet.
fair enough, fair enough. You know what? That is exciting and terrifying all at once on a Morrison level.
Yes.
When I first read Morrison's run, because I wait for the trades now,
Hmm.
very, very, very seldom will I actually buy a floppy, a single issue.
Yeah.
But I remember I abhorred Morrison's RIP run and his whole thing. I
Hmm.
thought it was so stupid, but I was in my late 20s at that time.
Yep. Fair.
Whereas now I read it, I'm like, okay, this is actually really well done. I get it. I appreciate it.
Say age sometimes gives you a perspective, so that's why I'm saying I'm
Indeed.
not going to say. I never say something's. There are some things I'll say like this is hot garbage, but knowing I already have an appreciation for Ron V's work at that point, I said, let me just put it to the side. I'll get back to it when it's fully collected, and I'll revisit it once it all drops on DC Infinite and see and kind of read it all the way through and give it another shot.
Well, I appreciated his I appreciated the way he wrote Batman. Like
Hmm.
I have the first trade, the hardcover, and he throws that guy off the building, and the guy's like in the perspective, he's coming toward us, but Batman's above him.
Hmm.
And he talks about how he's offering people like unequivocal pain to make them talk. And I'm like, that's cool. That's my Batman. You
Yep,
know?
that is my Batman. I do remember listening to the Nightfall audio drama. It's one of my favorite audio dramas at that point.
Oh,
The acting and everything like that.
I have not listened to that yet, but
You've
I am
never.
super
Oh,
excited. I've actually just gone back. I'm like three-quarters of the way through in the omnibus for Nightfall,
okay. Yep.
and I'm so digging it. I remember picking those up and like waiting to pick them up and like finding the the individual issues,
Yep.
and like that was my Death of Superman.
Okay.
I was able to get on, whereas the Death of Superman passed me by, and I found out
Hmm.
afterward. You know,
Yeah. The audio drama of Nightfall is one of the best audio dramas out there. I mean, it takes you through all the way from Sword of Azrael all the way to through Night's End at that point, including all the stuff with Bruce going out in his European adventures at that point as well. So it's a full
yes.
cast, everything like that. But yeah, highly recommend it.
Thank you for reminding me of that because I completely forgot about it. Thank you. The
Yeah.
Nightfall audio drama. Thank you. So then after we see him hold this dude upside down, and I love the little touch that Monkey puts. He's holding the guy upside down, and you see the
Mhm.
gun like falling past his head.
Yep.
Great touch, great touch. And then this is where Nightwing comes into the story
Hmm.
here, and I just love it. That shot on page 38, and I'm swinging through the city in the bottom panel.
Hmm.
And then we're back to Mr. Freeze getting his new suit. I also love that the Asian guy in here was replaced with the woman. I thought that was a nice touch in the movie.
Yeah.
Very well done. And then he's he's basically spitballing with Black Mask about Freeze. And then here's this is Batman coming in. And now obviously in the book, this is when those he tracks down those three fellas in the truck. But this is the a couple of heavily armed gangster militia here.
Mm-hmm. And I do like, the inclusion of Nightwing every so often at that point, and it could have been in a danger of, oh, we would need to see Hood and Nightwing go at that point, and I'm glad they kind of kept that to a minimum.
Yes,
and they focused on Bruce versus Red Hood.
yes. Nightwing was a very good supporting character. Yeah, it could have easily gotten convoluted. Certainly. I love this picture here on page 46, the perspective with the elbow.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is great art right there. Great art. If there's anything that you want to pick out and show, please feel free.
Yeah, definitely. As now I was saying, oh yeah, I probably should showcase a few things. It's interesting. Like you have Amazo. It's always random. I was not expecting Amazo to be in a Batman kind of story.
Right. It's like, how does Batman take down Amazo? Okay.
I mean, I knew he would find a way to take him down, but it's like one of those characters and villains. You're just like, oh, okay, we're going this way.
Yeah. Amazo of all creations.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we're at the end, and again another beautiful Wagner cover with Amazo's fist hitting the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I love go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it. Go.
No, please.
It's one of those things where when I say like Amazo is going to be defeated by Batman, he's got to go through a couple of rounds, but he's the tactician. He's going to be able to, he already knows he's faced Amazo before, but it's an idea of like, how's he going to do it this time?
Right. Because like to me, just in my broad stroke, it's like, all right, isn't Amazo like a JLA villain? Like, why is Batman fighting him by himself? Yeah. Okay, I digress. I love the picture of on page 60 of the guy getting frozen by Freeze. That is such a great picture. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. And well colored, of course, by Sinclair. And then his face falls off on page 61 in the third panel. That's so great.
I like Black Mask saying that. I get it. You're unpredictable. I can work with that.
Yeah. It's just like another day at the office for him. Yeah. Another super duper sociopath. And then on page 63 with Amazo, that's such great perspective. I just love the way Monkey just makes that a splash page with Amazo. So awesome. And then, of course, Batman and Nightwing, similar to the cartoon movie. He's got the same weaknesses as a human. Could you imagine someone stabbing you with something like if you even put a needle in one ear and poke the inside of your ear, it hurts so bad.
I know, yeah.
Someone doing that on both ears, like his Amazo's reaction is perfect.
Very much.
Yeah. And then as we go through, this actually goes on for a few pages. And then
they drag out the fight. They make it worth our while.
Most certainly get our Amazo's money's worth. So then on page 76, that ends. And the whole while, I love this whole setup with the Red Hood calling Black Mask. And it's like, what is in that big container? Like what's in there?
Yep, and it ends up being 100 rounds of kryptonite.
Yeah.
Pounds. Give me pounds of kryptonite.
Yeah. He's like, I've got over 100 pounds of kryptonite. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to need that. Right. And then there's that cover that we just spoke about with Matt Wagner. And you see the face in the reflection. And I guess at that point, the face could be anybody, when it was on the shelf.
Yep. And I love the variant cover they included with it at that point where the revelation is there.
Yeah. With Jason Todd. doing the holding the same thing, Again,
And I
another
think,
mirror. Go ahead.
oh no, go for it. No, no, no,
I
go.
was going to say like another mirror image of Batman, like mirroring Batman.
Yeah. And I think where this issue, like the big thing at the end of this issue is, it's another fun fight, but what's memorable about it is Red Hood facing down the Joker,
Yes.
and basically exacting his own revenge on him,
I
especially where
remember.
especially where the end he says, "Tell me, how does that feel?"
Yes, yes. I remember even reading this again, reading this hardcover when it came out, and I was like, "Oh, right, right, right. I remember that part." Yeah. And the Joker is so like blasé about it, and then next
Mm-hmm.
thing you know, like he shows him, he says, "No, I never think that," and you could see he's about to hit him with the crowbar.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I love art like this. Like you could like our eyes almost complete the like the momentum. Like you see him
Yeah.
wind up, he hits him there, and then his arm is up, his arm is down, his arm is up, his arm is down. I just
Mm-hmm.
love art like that. Absolutely love stuff like that. He just beating him with the crowbar.
Yep. He's again he's got some issues to work out.
Yeah, most certainly. And then there it is. He takes off the mask and bam, it's Jason Todd.
Yeah.
And then the next
And
one
like I
is
said, that's the biggest thing about that issue. The rest of it's kind of like that's another fight. It is
right.
what it is.
Right, right, right. That's the part where that's like the glue of the overall story. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, all right. The
Yeah.
Joker, yeah. And like it's poetic justice. And I remember when I first read the trade, I loved it so much because I had, especially there's that issue, I think it's like number 10 in
Mm-hmm.
Nightfall, where the Joker gasses Batman.
Yeah.
And it's the Joker and Crane, and they're
Mm-hmm.
in the sewer system after he saves the mayor, and he sees Jason getting beat all over again, and he keeps
Yeah.
saying his name, and then he's beating
Mm-hmm.
beating the Joker.
I would say this next one's like one of my favorite ones of the series. Because it's a lot of introspection.
Mhm.
And I had forgotten in kind of where I remembered and kind of forgotten like how much his stuff has occurred since since Identity Crisis at that point, and we get like kind of a tip of the hat to Identity Crisis and Crisis of Conscience with his
Yeah.
conversation with Zatanna. It's
Yes,
that when they're visiting the pits and the
yes,
sealed pits at that point, and she shares his theory, and it's like, well, yeah, still don't know why you needed me here. So I needed someone I could trust, but I had to settle for you.
dude. I'm getting goosebumps right now. Identity Crisis is my all-time favorite story
Mm-hmm.
in DC Comics. I love that story so much. And I've emailed Brad Meltzer like 2 or 3 times and trying to get him on the show.
I've done the same for my show. He every time I do it, he's like, "Thank you for the invite, but I'm not doing any interviews, or I'm in the middle of a tour for the book."
Yes,
So
yep, dude, you got the same thing as me. Maybe he
yeah,
has somebody like send that out to like everybody
well,
because
I actually did last year. I finally got to meet him. He was on his book tour, and I drove to Winston Salem. And I know he signs like everything, anything he books or otherwise. So I have my absolute of Identity Crisis because, and a few other things he signed. But I'm not one to sell my books, but yep, there it is.
yeah,
And I was good with him personalize it because that is a very personal story for me because that series is what got me back into collecting comics in college. It
okay.
was just starting to come out, and so yes, I know all the controversies, and I'm not saying if you're not a fan
No,
of
no,
the
no, 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 no.
book,
Let's
I
slow
told
let's slow it down real quick
yeah.
because that's the comic that got me back. That's the story that
Oh
got me
wow,
back into comics when I was in,
nice.
but it came out in what, 2004 was it? I think.
Yeah, I was a freshman or sophomore in college. Yeah,
So in 2004 I was 22.
gotcha.
So I remember like r- I had a Wizard subscription still, even though I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't collecting comics.
Yeah.
And then I remember reading about the story, and I was like, "Wow, this is really it sounds really interesting." And I think by that time I was like 2 issues. They were like 3 issues in, and so I bought the first 3 issues.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. And I was like, month to month, I was just going in and I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. So you saying that it has such a deep
Yeah.
connection with you, I really appreciate that. You're the first person I've spoken to, like face
Wow.
to
Yeah.
face, to tell me
It,
that. Because I've heard people talk about the story, and the
mhm.
first thing they do is it's like, oh my God, this and that. And it's like, come on, stop.
I
All
mean,
right.
I get the problems with it, and in the sense of like when people talk about fridging characters and things like that, they're not necessarily wrong. I can't necessarily say that it's just a different perspective that people focus on. What reason it means so much to me, besides getting me back into comics, is that it's the reason it got me back into comics is that I had gotten out a while ago when the stories just weren't interesting to me anymore.
Correct. Correct.
And when I read this, and I'd never know who Brad Meltzer was necessarily at
Me
that point.
neither.
This is my first introduction to him.
Yeah.
And seeing someone who could bring real problems and real issues to the heroes at that point, it was such a, so many different parts of that story just like hit me hard. Like I was lucky enough to find in a Facebook or someone selling it at that point because I knew it was way out of print. It's not necessarily one they're looking to put back in a print. And I said, like, I have to have this one just because, like, how much and meeting Brad and getting him to personalize it for me. I even told him, that story. I said, this is what got me back into comics. And I just need you to know that.
I emailed him something,
Yeah.
a variation of that, and I'm like, dude, it's the 20th anniversary. Like, let's chat about it. And he's like, I really appreciate that you you know, that you're aware of that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the same thing, like I'm not doing interviews now, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But that story to me, I understood what he was going for
Mm-hmm.
with the things that people right away complain about. But it's like, to me, like I grew up in an era when, you know, I was watching Stallone movies, Schwarzenegger
Yep.
movies, like bad guys did really bad things. So
Yes, they did.
at that particular time, like to me, you know, they didn't show it. They let you know what happened, but they didn't show it. So to me, it's like, I don't know, like it wasn't that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm like, okay, bad guys do bad things, and it made me loathe the character and want them to get revenge on Dr. Light, you know, to where I was like
True.
with him, like, yeah, you know, get him, you know.
Yeah.
So to have that be the first thing that people say always, you know, makes me, it burns my buns, you know what I mean? And
Yeah. I mean, again, but like, it's, I see their point, and I said, I'm sorry I don't share it, but this is why. But most of the people who understand it is just, they understand from both of our perspectives at that point. It's like this means more to us than just what's there. There's a special connection to it. So
very much so.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a very special connection. And like Dan DiDio said, he's like, I would challenge people who don't like it and ask them, well, have you read the story? Because if you're going to say that right away, then I don't think you've read the story. And he goes, did you like Watchmen?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you liked Watchmen, you should like Identity Crisis, he said.
Fair. It's like I said, it's always one of those things. I welcome all opinions. At that point, it was one of the first things for my first podcast. At that point, it was one of the early episodes, and I always tag the writers and creators to it. And he actually responded, liked it, and I said, "Oh my gosh," because it was early on when I was doing my show, and it was just like, "Oh, creator actually took the time to see it and then even respond." And those things matter to people like us.
It would matter to me if I made something,
Yeah.
you know, and
So,
I especially if it came under a bit of fire too, and you like put it out there for everybody to see, I like
yep.
this, even though you don't, and be like, hey
Hmm.
man, thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It
So,
was, and I'll tell you, I discovered the Absolute in 2014 or 2015 on
okay.
Amazon, and I was like, I gotta have it, gotta have it. And I like
you
bought it
you
that day.
I still, even though it's out of print, I still got a deal, and I still paid technically undercover. So that's always my rule.
Yeah,
So,
that's always like, that's
yep.
always a swish. Yeah, I
Yep.
love it. I love it. Yeah, so I just not to, even though we're talking about Under the Red
Mhm.
Hood, and this part ties into it with Zatanna. Have you read a story that's kind of like either given you similar vibes or maybe felt as grown up as that story at that
A-
time, like
As
recently
identity,
or since then?
as identity crisis.
Yeah.
Oh. as I tell a lot of people, you get older, I still enjoy the big two at that point, but
Mhm.
as I grow older, I really love the indies and the independent publishers. I find myself, art's always great, but if you can't hook me with a story, it's it's one of those that, and it's gonna be interesting because technically it's under the big two, but it's unlike anything you'll ever find, and one of the ones that really hits so hard. And I challenge anyone to read it. And if you're not in tears at so many different parts of the book, I wonder if you have a soul, and that would be Day Tripper.
Day Tripper?
Yep, Day Tripper.
What is
It is very hard to describe because it ruins the
okay?
kind of twist of the book.
Okay,
Um,
so and
it's written. It's the art and writing is Gabriel Ha and Fabian Moon,
okay,
and it's taking you through the life of one person at different parts. And that's really all I can say because there is a massive twist that you won't discover until you start reading the second issue.
okay. Is it a
Um,
superhero comic or more like
no, it is not. It
okay,
is it is under the DC's Black Label. Um, it has no superheroes. No one ever shows up to it. It's just about you going and seeing this guy at different points of life, and it's not necessarily in chronological order either.
okay,
So,
interesting.
so that is a book that I can highly recommend in the sense of that hits that deep and that hard. And in it, I've tweeted this when a couple of years ago and said it was life changing. That book, absolutely life changing.
All right. Well, you say it like that. Now I have to look at this. And it's spelled the same as it sounds.
Yep, Day Tripper.
Day
Yep.
Tripper. Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Now I have tried to get into Marvel over the years.
Okay.
The last Marvel thing that I read for like a series of volumes was
Hmm.
after One More Day and they did Brand New Day. I was like, oh, this is a great time for me to jump on. And I remember like for the first like 4 or 5 hardcovers, I actually was like, oh, this is cool. I like this. I feel like I
Hmm.
understand. I'm understanding Spider-Man finally a little bit,
Yeah.
but I have not read anything. I have Marvel Omnis that I bought from
Yeah.
OPB, but it's like on my
Hmm.
backlist, like to do, and I'm
Yeah.
excited for it. So, is there a
Hmm.
Marvel story that a DC guy like me, you'd be like, oh man, you absolutely
Uh,
should read this?
Let me, as I turn around and check things out on my shelf. I
Oh,
mean,
that
it's cliche just because I know how much of a Batman fan you are. It's just
yes.
Daredevil.
Okay.
Daredevil. You start with Daredevil probably has one of the most back to back knock out of park like series, starting with Kevin Smith,
I have it.
and Casada. And so you go through that, and it heads into Bendis, it then heads into Brubaker, then heads into Wade. Wade heads into Charles Soule. Soule heads into Zdarsky,
Okay.
and it's they each have their own kind of take. Like Wade, people have a love hate relationship with Wade's run on it because how it ends after what he picks up on after Brubaker and then what leads into Shadowlands, which wasn't Brubaker, but he was leading towards it. But after the arc of Shadowlands, Matt's in a very different place. And some people didn't understand and didn't appreciate what Wade was trying to do. And without revealing too much, it's like you kind of missing the point that Matt's dealing with a lot. And Matt just went through basically life and death. And he's literally, and so I give you this when you get to the point so that you kind of look at with a perspective on this is a man that's suffering through massive PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how he's dealing with it. And so if you look at it, Wade's run through that lens, you see the pain that Matt's going through and why he's acting the way he's acting. And Soul basically took it back to formula with what he brings. Zdarsky brings it, and just Zdarsky does Zdarsky and that. But if you're a fan of Batman and you like your Batman books, like I'm not saying Daredevil is Marvel's Batman. I'm just saying like if you like that kind of dark and character driven kind of stuff, start with Kevin Smith's run all the way going through Zdarsky.
Okay. Cool. Thank
So
you for that.
you got a lot of homework, but it is this thing. It's one of the characters I could say that since then he has not really. Shadowlands is a little bit like, if you just stick to the main Shadowlands story and not focus on the tie-ins, it's okay. It's the little blip on the radar, but seriously, it's a run that you can't argue with.
Okay. I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
remember when I still had my Wizard subscription and like Bendis's Daredevil was like
Mhm.
burning up the charts. And I was like, oh, this is the best thing since like Frank Miller's blah blah. So I have Frank Miller's Companion and his regular Daredevil
Yep.
Omni. I have Bendis's, I have Brubaker's, I have Wade's, and I have Soul's.
Okay.
And then I know I had Zdarsky's hardcovers, but I sold those recently. But I didn't
Yep.
read them. I didn't read them.
Yep. The Omni of his first volume is
Exactly.
coming. Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw Omar announce that a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, all
Yep.
right, I'm gonna wait for the Omni then.
But yeah, no, and I've only into the first two issues of the new creative team. Their names escape me, so the Darsky has now left, and they have a new creative team on it. So
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, because
yeah.
I'm trying to find something to hook me in to where
Mhm.
now that there's so much back catalog, because I've been reading so much DC that I could just like deep
Yeah.
dive into it.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I would say, yeah, that'd be a good starting point. And if you want to have a wacky, fun, good time, and not have to have really any character, and not have to worry about like backstory or anything like that, Dan Slott and the all Matt and Laura Allred Silver Surfer.
Really, the Silver
Yes,
Surfer. Okay,
yep.
He never really appealed to me, but okay,
It,
because
it is, it's a book that you can even probably hand a significant other and say, just read this. It's a love story, but it's so far out, and just we get Allred's art on it, but it's such a touching story about Silver Surfer falling in love with a just a normal human girl. And it went on for two whole series with it, and it's all collected in one omni. But the art alone is just, I love Matt and Laura Allred's art.
okay, thank
Yeah,
you for that. I
yeah.
appreciate that
So there
too.
you go. You got a few things you
No,
can look
I
at.
appreciate that. I have a bunch of stuff like I bought the reprint of Hickman's Fantastic Four. I've never read Fantastic Four, but again, I heard so much good things, so many good things.
I'm one
Uh
of the weird ones that I liked it, but I'm not over the. It's not my. It's kind of lower on my tier list for Hickman. Don't let that influence. I'm one of the weird ones.
no,
Yeah.
well, what got me on this whole thing of like starting to buy these Omnis is I of the Marvel Omnis is years probably back in like 2016, 2017.
Mhm.
I had heard so much about Hickman's Avengers, and then the omnibus with Avengers World,
Yeah.
and so I actually bought it and read it, and I was like, wow, this is really enjoyable even for a noob
Mhm.
like me. And I was able to pick up, and then I haven't read number two yet. I got to go back and read them in succession because there's so much going on. But
Yeah.
so as we go through the end of the story, this is really interesting. Like even Deathstroke gets involved,
Well,
and
even going back to like one thing I want to say, when we kind of got sidetracked with Zatanna and everything like that, that issue, I really enjoyed also his interaction with Ollie, because there's just such a
yes,
there's
there's still that oomph of like the twist of the arrow from
yeah,
Identity Crisis.
and especially it's like, he's he calls Ollie out, said, this anger you have towards me, I know it can't be anything I've done to you. You're not that jealous. It must be you've done to me, and I'm tired of sparring with you. And then he says, I'm sorry. It's just like, yep, Winnick did such a good job, like roping in people like us that have been following what's going on, that to those that don't know, you're not lost, but to us, we're just like, thank you. Well, I
Yes,
feel
yes,
seen. I feel
yeah,
rewarded.
yeah,
Um, but it's all these moments of just Bruce trying to rationalize, like, no, it's not Jason. This can't be. I don't believe it. Like, he's trying to find every single answer to force it, saying like this couldn't happen. Even like when you get to the part where like they're facing each other down, going back to that first issue
hmm
where even you get the you get like where he's looking at, like, you see the full revelation again, even though we know it's Jason at that point. It's, they come to a draw in the sense of, fine, you don't believe me, here's my fingerprints, here's my DNA, go have at it at that point. I'll prove it to you. And even still, he won't believe it. He'll like go in and wonder about the coffin. He reminisces about like what went wrong with Jason, like what was it. And I'll always say this about Jason, like it's easy to say that Jason Todd's people's least favorite Robin in the
Yes.
sense of like just like he's everything Batman's against. He's everything like that. Is like, but you're ignoring why he's like that.
Mhm.
You're ignoring like in the sense of okay, Dick had his parents taken away from him, but he grew up with his parents. He had a family. He was shaped by his family. Tim Drake, same thing. He may have lost his mother, but he still had his dad until he was tragically taken, but he still grew up in a good home. Damien is shaped by who he grew up with,
Mhm.
Talia and Roz. And that's why he is the way he is. When Jason comes into Bruce's life, his dad is not there. His dad's a criminal.
Yes.
He grows up as a criminal. He's stealing the wheels of the Batwheel. He learns how to survive like that. And so, yeah, it was a good choice for him to take him under his wing and try to shape it. But he spent a lot of years trying to survive in understanding the criminal world in this anger. So to say he's your least favorite, I always challenge people to say why. And it usually ends up being they miss. I'm not trying to convince them that they should be your least favorite, but they miss the point of why Jason is who he is.
I appreciate a smart, introspective person like yourself so much to look at things that way, because I found myself, on the surface with even movies besides story, comic
Mhm.
stories. I mean, like, I don't get it. But then someone like yourself, I listen to, and then I go back and I read it or watch it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
I,
Okay, I
I
get it.
I had that experience a couple like last year or the year before when the movie Nope came out,
Okay.
and one of my friends saw it. Said, I don't get it. I just don't get it. It was terrible. I said, hold your thought, and I just send them an article from Hollywood Reporter. Anyways, he broke down such a great way of looking at that movie and a perspective on it where like I sent it to her and I said, just read this and then come back and tell me exactly kind of like what your feelings are about it. And it just blew her mind. It's like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
how I feel about Batman v Superman when I watched the Ultimate Edition. I saw it in the
yeah.
theater and I was like, this, I can't believe it. The reviews were right. This movie's terrible. And then I watched the Ultimate Edition, and then I've listened to like BVS by the minute and
hmm
read some articles. And now when I watch the movie, I have a completely new appreciation for
Yeah.
what
And
Snyder
it's
was
Richard
going for.
Newby who is the author of that Hollywood Reporter
Article?
piece
Okay.
breaking down Nope. So
Thank you. Thank you.
it, and I thank you for your compliment of breaking down. It's kind of like what you said. Growing up, we think one way, and then we start age and experiences, things like that. We gain a better, deeper understanding for these superhero books that are deeper than just fighty. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. 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 No,
and
exactly. Exactly.
and that's why that issue about like retelling like how Jason came in his life, I was very happy they did that for the people that didn't, see that growth of Jason where he was.
Yes.
Um, but you're right, like bringing Deathstroke in there and at this time, like talk about the society. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we're still talking about, the end results of the villain society and everything like that from Infinite Crisis. And I think, when you get to it, and I remember, like I said, watching your stuff with Winnick, the whole thing of the ending of Bruce, Black Mask, Joker, and everything like that. To your point, like they do it so well in the movie to see that scene played out is just like saying it's not that you don't kill people. It's not that that it's because you didn't kill him. Why did you let him get away with this?
Yes.
At that point, and it's always the question with Batman. It's always the question. It's like if you just take it down, take the people down, it we wouldn't be losing. We wouldn't have people who would be killed like this. And I love his counter to it, saying every night I have to fight that. You don't think that I don't carry that burden with me? I don't do it because it's hard to do it. I don't do it because it's so easy to do it.
Yes.
Like, he's got this moral compass about him that, you know, in Heath Ledger's Joker and The Dark Knight called it, said you're gonna, your one rule you're gonna break tonight is like, I don't
You're gonna
kill, even
break
though
your
we
one rule. Yeah,
even even though we know Batman's broken his one rule many times.
yeah. Hmm.
So it's it's this challenge to his beliefs and the constant reminder of Jason and how he leaves. I love how the story does ends with him, like, disappearing, and we get, the annual of looking back how it came about and understanding that, yes, it's Superboy Prime hitting the thing to wake him up, but it's like this mindless philosophy at that point, and how he got into Ra's al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul, however you want to say it, and going into the Lazarus pits. It brings some, okay, I don't like that it came about because of Superboy Prime punching, but at least I can now somewhat swallow how he's coming back into
Yes.
existence. Um, Jason is still, he is always the one of Bruce. Bruce will always think of him as his greatest failure,
Yes.
you know?
Hmm.
And I've recently reread Three Jokers, and I love the art. The art is outstanding. The art is
Yes.
outstanding. And I wish it was longer.
Me too.
And,
Preach.
and
Uh-huh.
the one, in my opinion, it's just an okay story, just because I think it's too short, and a lot of things were there. But what the thing that I appreciate, and it ties into Under the Red Hood, is his conversation with Barbara,
Hmm.
saying that I'm angry at you all. You're missing the point why I'm angry with you all. I'm angry with you all because no one ever asked me when I came back, am I okay? Like, and came to talk to him and do that. And I wanted to go like, well, Jason, you were going after, like, you were on a sociopathic murder killing spree at this point. So it wasn't like, hey, let's sit down and chat about this. But I get what he's saying, in the
Yeah.
sense of, like, even when that was over and he was trying to be a member of the family, no one sat down and talked with him about it. And I get that.
Well, I recently reread that myself about
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, I got some vibes from this story. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
definitely brought me back down to this story, and I felt like it would almost be an easy continuation to pick up from here and then read Three Jokers and like get the same sort of feeling for Jason Todd.
Yeah. It's I can understand, like, it's one of those that people say this is one of their favorite stories of all time, and the animated movie is, they do enough where it honors a lot of what the book is, but they do take some ch- changes and liberties with it, and that's fine. I don't need everything to be page to screen and not still be good. Like, I look forward to when you have stories like, oh, it's adapted from this. Good. I want to see what you do creatively. I don't need to see. If I want something to be the purest thing, I've got the book right there. That's why I always tell people, like, you can be angry in the sense of, like, oh, they remade this or they redid this. It was not better. The book says, that's cool. You can still have that opinion, but they'll never take away from you. You'll never take away the original source. You'll always have that there.
True, true. I had to get over myself with the Hush movie because when they announced Hush, I didn't understand that they were going to use their continuity. I thought they were going to do it like year one with and like pretty much Dark Knight Returns almost page for page. So I
Mm-hmm.
was disappointed, but now I appreciate it. I'm like, it was good for what it was.
Yeah, that's one. Not saying, like, I don't dislike certain things, but even I look back on Hush saying, man, I look at it so fondly before, but I keep on deconstructing it a little bit more here and there. One thing I will say is unforgivable right now is Injustice, the movie version of it. I was like, oh, you had such a good thing and you tried to cram it all into under 90 minutes. Shame on you. Shame on you.
I heard, I'll share this with you, and I'll reiterate this in another show of
Yeah.
mine. A very well placed source that Scott and I have cultivated
Mm-hmm.
told us that Don't know if it's definitely going to come out, but it's in development right now as a 2-part Nightfall animated
All
movie.
right. You had my curiosity, sir. Now you have my attention.
Yes, yes, yes. I was like, are you serious? And they're like, I've said too much. I'm like,
Uh,
no, that's fair enough.
uh,
I will not
that
poke you anymore. Thank
that's
you.
fine. They're I hope that they do good with that because they're doing that in Infinite Crisis. I guess 3-part movie at that point as well. So I'm
Yeah,
fingers crossed.
I wonder. I actually just read Crisis on Infinite Earths, and dude, it was a
Mhm.
slog for me. Like,
Oh, not Infinite Crisis, but yeah, Crisis Infinite. They're doing a new Crisis Infinite. There's yeah.
all right, because I thought you were talking. I thought you meant
No,
Infinite
nope,
Crisis,
nope.
because I was going to
Crisis
say,
Infinite Earths. Yeah,
all right, because I didn't know they were doing 3 parts either. Because that story is like so convoluted. There's so much going on, and my brain hurt. Because comics were way different back in the 80s too. Even
hmm
like some of the page layout, I'm like, where am I supposed to read from? Because there's like a bubble in here and this and that.
yeah,
So, but I digress. So,
yep.
last thoughts on
Yeah.
Under the Red Hood.
It's an outstanding story. I mean, if you're one of the people who have never read it at that point, don't be afraid of all this history being there because there were just when you think, oh, I don't understand, you Judd Winnick will catch you up. He will.
Yes.
You just got to get there. There's going to be certain issues that we've kind of referred back to and things like that you will be caught up and you will be have a good understanding, and then you might want to go back and read the issues again just because okay, now I understand what's going on. But it's one of the few Batman stories that's in mainstream continuity that you don't need prior knowledge. You really don't have to have prior knowledge to enjoy Under the Red Hood.
Yes. But if you start down the rabbit hole and
Yeah.
retroactively go back and then read Identity Crisis, it makes it so much more.
Yep.
So,
And it's always come back to like Bruce said, his as you so put it before from the movie, it's just like his greatest failure was the loss of Jason. And he always will have that in the back of his mind, even though Jason has turned a lot of different corners. He's changed and grown in different ways now. People love it, people hate it, people are indifferent to it. You know, it's one of the most unique characters to have to come back. Like even it's I think he is more complex than Bucky is,
oh, most definitely.
you know.
Most definitely. Yeah.
And that's not knocking
No,
Bucky Barnes and the Winter
no,
Soldier. It's just like there's been a lot of layers to Jason Todd and his growth in the DC universe.
indeed. Very
So
good. So I second what Chris said. Chris, tell the fine folks where they can find you, sir.
yeah, you can find me on most of the socials outside of Mastodon at Chris Balga. I don't have a TikTok, but I do have a TikTok. It's just mostly for looking, so I don't really promote that necessarily. I don't create TikTok, but all the socials, yeah, at Chris Balga. I've got 2 shows. They're both on the Geek Ultimate Alliance network. So if you just search any podcasts, just look up Geek Ultimate Alliance. 2 shows, World's Finest True Believers, where a guest and I go on and the guest comes on and picks a graphic novel or a comic book arc from any publisher, and we do a do a deep dive into it from the history of the creation to the creators' backstories to the it's all about the guest favorite moments. They get to fanboy and girl out on it. And my other show on the network is Marvel Alliance. My friend Brent and I break down weekly the week in Marvel from movies, comics, and TV. So, but yeah, check those out.